With over 25 years as a teacher and over 30 years as an athletics coach, Kevin Marks has not only put his stamp on our community as an educator, but his legendary career as a coach has molded many of our youth into leaders, athletes, and the productive members of today's society. That's why it's a great honor and privilege for myself to have this conversation with one of the great coaches and educators, not just in Las Cruces, but the entire state of New Mexico. Yeah, welcome to Off the Grid with Gabriel Garcia with special guest, Coach Kevin Marks. Let's get it vibing, familia.
Now we can all get down, put your drink in the air. Fellas happy with shot, and ladies let down your hair. I got the sound that'll have the people bobbing their heads. Forget the 9 to 5, gonna play it again, cause it won't stop. It's all about the feeling inside. Another path on the journey of this hip-hop ride. If you're down, leave your drama.
Yes. What is up, everybody? All of my people out here in the Southwest, whether you're in Arizona, here in New Mexico, here in the 575, 505, or in West Texas. Thank you, everybody, for joining me once again on another week, another episode of Off the Grid. And I am joined by a very special guest. A lot of you may not know this man by face, but you may know the name. Yeah, Mr. Kevin Marks. What can I say? We talked about this before, man. You are a legend in this area, especially people that are from, anything involved with athletics. They know the name. Thank you, Mr. Marks, for being here. I really appreciate you. How you doing today, man? How's everything going?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks, Gabriel. I'm glad to be on the show. And yeah, I don't know if it's good being known or not being known. You know, I always like to stay under the radar. So we'll see how that goes.
Also, you were that kind of coach then that was probably like, if you're getting the attention, you're like, I don't care about getting the attention. I just want to make sure my squad, my players or my guys are ready to go. Was that kind of what kind of coach you were?
Yeah. I would have to say that was it with the coaching. You get into that coaching zone and it's always about the kids. So that's why I always like to keep it. So you're pretty accurate there.
All right. So let's get right into this. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I know I spoke to you. We've spoken a few times on the phone. You've told me a little bit about yourself, about your history. Give me a little bit of background. How you coming to Las Cruces and everything, man.
Yeah, it was quite a trip to Las Cruces. I was born and raised in Iowa, and when I was in 6th grade, my dad decided to come to New Mexico State and get his master's, and he helped coach track here at New Mexico State and lived in Las Cruces for a year. Went to Zia Junior High at the time. It was the Sun Devil there. Yeah. And our town's good at changing school names, so now they're not the Sun Devils anymore. But that's what we were then. And I was at Zia for a year. After my dad got his master's, we moved to Gallup, New Mexico, and I attended the rest of my junior high and high school years up in Gallup. And then, since I had been in Las Cruces we lived on New Mexico State campus when we moved here. It's like, I want to go back to New Mexico State. So I came back down here, and that's where I went to college, and I haven't left since.
So you obviously, is that just a big part of you maybe just falling in love with Las Cruces at the time?
Yeah, it is. Las Cruces, I always loved the community and the weather. Being from Iowa, I couldn't pass up the weather down here. And it feels like more of a home than growing up in Iowa now. And Las Cruces is just the place I want to be and stay. So I want to, always dedicate a lot of time and a lot of years to this town and the community.
Well, I think that definitely you have done, put your mark on the community well enough to say that you are a Las Cruces, you are a native Las Cruces, and this is your home, and people, whether it's parents or the community, they recognize you as such, as a big part of that. Now, you weren't just always a coach. Am I correct? You were an English teacher as well.
Yeah, that's one of those anomalies that, when I started teaching, I was in English. That was my degree. And and being a coach, that really got me in the door right away. When I first applied at Las Cruces High and was interviewed by Mr. No, he said, "Now let me get this straight. You're an English teacher and a coach?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." He's like, "Well, I got a position for you." So that was good. And it really, what's strange is my dad was an English teacher and a coach, and all my life I was told, don't be a teacher and don't be a coach. It's like, go do something else. And I did come to NMSU originally in engineering and doing that, and I like the problem solving and everything, but it didn't give me that feeling. So I'd always been around coaching, and I think it was just ingrained in me. So I knew I wanted to coach, and I really enjoy teaching and dealing with the kids. So that was a big factor in everything.
What is let me ask you, what now obviously you're dealing with students on two different levels. One, you're dealing with the student athlete, the other you're dealing with the other everyday student. What are the different challenges between the two in terms of coaching them and educating them in the classroom?
It's weird because there's differences, but at the same time, I really think there's a lot of similarities. And that's when I started teaching, I learned really quick that I run my classroom the same way I run a practice. You prepare. It's all of it about like enjoying what you're doing and having the kids enjoy and building those relationships. It's a little different goal, a little different outcome that you're looking for, but at the same time, building those relationships was huge, and I learned that really quick. And a lot of times, coaches get a bum rap for being a teacher, And I hear it's like, oh, your parents like, oh, our kid has a coach as a teacher, oh great, but the coaches have that discipline, that just being able to control the situation, I think a lot, and if you learn to use that to your advantage in the classroom, it really helped out in the classroom. And then there's also the aspects of teaching in the classroom that we always said that the wrestling mat, the football field, wherever we were coaching, that's a classroom too. And the kids need to know that too. It's not always playtime. There's life lessons and things to be learned in all aspects. So
that's a great way to kind of compare the two. As somebody myself who was in I was in sports all through from elementary up through high school. So you're absolutely right. Now that you say that and I think about it, it is, whether you're like on a wrestling, if you're wrestling, or whether it's on a football field or basketball court, you're still there to learn. And at the high school level, they're still learning. A lot of them are still learning the game. I was when I was doing my research with the wrestling and some of the guys that went through Las Cruces High School with your time there. I mean, I'm seeing some of them are All American Division II. I'm seeing some of them going and competing in Division I wrestling, and of course Joseph Benavides, a guy who I know. Of course, everybody knows him, UFC, WEC. So it's a matter of, I guess, like you said, these guys are still learning. They're learning to be, they're not adults yet. So you're still trying to teach them those responsibilities, and it's a different type of responsibility, when you are an athlete, because you're still being just like in the classroom, you got to be there on time. I've always felt though with athletics, it's a little bit different because the discipline thing, like with coaches, it's like a teacher may be like, okay, yeah, you're late to my class or whatever. You didn't show up well. That's just going to hurt you in the long run. A coach, it's like, okay, guess what? You're not suiting up this week then, so it's a lot different type of discipline.
Yeah, it is. And it's, it was interesting with the coaching because with wrestling, when I moved to New Mexico and saw the wrestling here, I grew up in Iowa. Everyone knew
wrestling. That's a wrestling place over there. Yeah.
And here we get kids that come in as freshmen into the wrestling room and they don't even know how to keep score or how to score a point. And so for them it really was a learning environment and a lot of teaching that went on that my assistant coaches and I would, we'd have a structure. You have your lesson plans for practice, just like you have lesson plans for your classroom. And it was, this is what needs to happen today. And this is what these kids need to accomplish today. in order for them to be successful down the road. So you're right. It's always a challenge.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. Let's now sticking with the wrestling. Obviously, am I correct in saying was it 30 years? Were you at Cruces High? Because I believe you took over as an assistant. You were named as assistant in '92, and within
Correct.
about 3 years, you became the head coach. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, I came on as an assistant for Robert Aranda, who was he was a real young coach when he came in, and I had actually wrestled against his older brother, and we knew each other, through the little wrestling community. And he had talked to me about coming in and helping out and wrestling with actually his little brother and a couple other guys, because in wrestling you try to find good matchups, and I was the nice skinny kid in college. He's like, hey, you can wrestle the lighter guys and work out with them. So I got to do that, and for 3 years I did that, and then Robert moved on, and I took the plunge. I talked to the other assistant coach, Coach Bravo, and I were the assistants. I was like, do you want to be the head coach? He's like, I'm not going to be the head coach. You can do it if you want. And I said I'd only do it if he did it. And we ended up coaching together all the way up till last year. Well, before this last season is when we finally retired. So about 31 years, I guess it is 31 years that we did this together.
Yeah, I noticed, when I was trying to get these guests for the show, and when your name came up with a lot of people, it was like his name was named with you. It was like, people were talking about, Coach Marks and Coach Bravo. So I guess that's kind of a thing, right? You guys are just kind of, like you said, I mean, doing it for so long.
That's I wouldn't have it any other way. We also coached freshman football together for over 20 years. We did the freshman football at Cruces High, and then we did wrestling together. So, and we were a good mix because we have different personalities and different approaches, but in the end, I think we both wanted the same thing, and we went about it different ways at times, but it worked well, and we made a good team. I think
there you go.
You talk to former athletes, and if it's freshman football, the first thing that's going to pop into those kids' mind is run around the backstop, because that's basically what it was. The first all summer was running around the backstop until you know how to count to 8, and until you know how to say yes sir and no sir, and not be late and all that good stuff. And then with wrestling, it's just we worked well together all those years. Just I don't even know how to explain it. It was like we knew each other's thoughts at the end, and I think a lot of the kids would get enjoyment when Coach Bravo and I would get at it in wrestling matches or sidelines. We're sitting there getting after each other more than getting on the kids, and the kids like, oh wow, that's crazy. So, but it was all it was all good, and it's all competition. So
there you go, man. That's awesome, and I guess that kind of tells me a little bit about the coaching thing. That doing this so long, it's almost like as an athlete when you're on a team, you kind of build that chemistry. You get, like you said, you get to know each other's tendencies and how to play off of them, when not to push it, when to push it. And I mean, that's just gotta be, that's funny. You're talking about the some of the kids, how they would kind of get a kick out of seeing you two guys go at it, because I remember when I was in high school, I just remember my coaches when it was like that, me playing defense, and when they were going at it with the offensive coach, it was always entertaining. It was almost get the popcorn out because coaches are about to go at it,
Yeah, freshman football was fun because one would have offense, one would have defense, and we'd be getting after each other. And I'd be telling the kids in the huddle, if you guys don't make Coach Bravo throw his hat, then we're running it. It's like, they're like, all right, let's see if we can get Coach Bravo to go crazy. And then I'm sure he was doing the same, because I was actually known as the quiet coach. So if I yelled, it was like, all right, we got Coach Marks to yell. And so it was always fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now let's talk about some of the maybe some of the athletes that have kind of come through under your tutelage. Just some of the guys that I was noticing up online when I was doing my research. Of course, we had recently. Now Avery Atma, was he under you?
Yes.
Avery Atma was under you, right, in 2020.
Yeah.
Now that was a singles state championship.
Yeah, that Avery ended up being one of our 3-time state champs as well. He wrestled really well and did a good job for us. You know, one of our more notable wrestlers in the past few years. So yeah,
Yeah.
Avery was one of ours.
And some other names I came across, Joaquin Marquez, 2007,
Yeah,
I believe was
that's
another state champion as well.
yeah. He was also a 3-time state champion for us, and he went on. He's one of the few in Las Cruces. He went on to wrestle at the Citadel. He did Division I wrestling,
Yes.
and then was actually a national qualifier as well, and made it to the national tournament. So, you know, great individual. Joaquin was one of them that he was, and we always preach being a student athlete, but I think Joaquin took it to the limit, because there'd be times like, Joaquin, put down To Kill a Mockingbird and you wrestle now. Get out of your book and get to work. You know, get to wrestle. Okay, coach. He put his book down and then go wrestle and go back and pick up his book and get back to studying. And just
Yeah.
great individuals.
That's got to be good to see though, when you have students that are really committed to their, not just the actual wrestling part of it, but to their education as well. Um, and tell me a little bit about. I tell you, I know the family of Joseph Benavides. He was a state champion back in 2000. What do you remember about coaching Joe?
Joe was interesting, and Joe he'll always have a special place in my heart. And I'll probably wander off this one, and I might have to turn off screen here and there, because he is a special one. Going back to me, when I was a senior, my parents divorced, and I, no matter what kids say then, any family changes has an effect on you. And I had a very special coach in a coach Angelo DePaulo from Gallup, that during beginning of the football season, it didn't take a couple weeks, and he pulled me aside and asked me what was going on, and he let me know that he knew my parents had divorced and my dad had moved to a different town, and I was living with my mom, and things had changed. And he just told me, I'm here if you need anything. And of course, being the cocky high school kid, is like, I don't need any help. And
Yeah.
I never went to him for any help, but that stuck with me all my life. And Joseph was one of those kids. He was had a single mom.
Yeah.
We're trying to raise 3 boys. And he came in for freshman football, little 100-pound kid, and thought he could beat everybody in the world. And he'll still tell you that we made mistakes and he should have been the starting running back. But you saw with Joseph that he needed some guidance, and it needed some help, and nothing against his mom, who did a great job, but boys need that influence. And
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Coach Bravo and I both kind of connected with him. And I like underdogs. I like the kids that people overlook, and he was one of them. They come into high school, and we told him, you need to be a wrestler. And he came in, and I still remember his freshman year, he learning wrestling, and then he goes to the state tournament, and he was 1 match away from placing. And that kid cried his eyes out like it was the end of the world. And I told him, I'm glad you're crying. If you don't want to feel like that again, then get after it. And he came back his sophomore year and was a state champ. And there's some stories behind that too. That wrestling is not an easy sport. And the first day of the state tournament, he was doing great. Made it to the semifinals. We get back to the hotel. He's 11 pounds overweight.
Oh,
I'm like,
oh,
Joseph, what happened? He's just, I don't know. I don't know why I gained so much weight. And Coach Bravo took him down to the treadmill and it's like trying to help him. And I know he told Coach Bravo 3 or 4 times during that evening, I quit. I'm not going to do this. And Joseph, and Coach Bravo told him, Joseph, you're not a quitter. You're not going to quit. You got this. And he came back, made weight, and was a state champ. And that was great. And then
yeah.
The heartbreak, and Joseph's one to talk about it too. He never won state again. He made it to the state finals the next 2 years, was upset by wrestlers both times that he had beat before. But he's one that when we sat down and talked about it, he's like, Coach, I didn't take it as serious my junior and senior year because I had already accomplished being a state champ. And I forgot what it was like to work hard for that goal. I kind of coasted at times. And
The hunger.
he learned that that coasting catches up to you at the wrong time. And,
Yeah.
it's a heartbreaker. And, not to take anything away from, like, I know one year he lost to a kid from Rio Rancho, and anyone that knows Rio Rancho, they have that mantra of, the rich privileged kids.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
nothing against that, but it's like Joseph needed that win more than that other kid did. But
Yeah. I
later
hear you.
on, I came to realize Joseph needed that loss. He needed that. And he threw his second place medal. He threw it at Tingley Coliseum. It landed behind a Coke machine. He was upset. I moved the Coke machine. I grabbed the medal. I still have the medal in a drawer here. And, I'll give it to Joseph when he needs it. But,
Yeah.
I think that's what propelled him to go on to the UFC. He knew he had to get away from here. He had to get away from his friends. And he had to focus on what's best for him. And he learned to do that in life. And now he lives a great life. He was able to take care of his mom, his family, and do all that. And he still keeps in contact with Coach Bravo and I now and then. And so it's good to see things like that.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Now, are you an MMA fan? Did you watch his matches? Anything from the WEC or when he was fighting for titles in the UFC?
Yeah, I watched them all quietly and alone. I didn't like to go other places because I was yelling at things.
Yeah.
I was like, Joseph, remember you're a wrestler. I know you want to knock someone out, but let's get back to the chokes and let's get all this stuff going. So, yeah, I kept track of it, and it was neat because he one time when he was having a WEC, I think it was the WEC fight against Cruz, when people started recognizing him. He did invite Coach Bravo and myself to the fights, and we both went, and he told us, he said, you guys have been like father figures to me in my life, and I only get so many tickets for family, and I wanted to make sure you both have tickets. And that was a heartwarming moment. But at the same time, Coach Bravo and I are like, we shouldn't be here because you have something to do. And Joe's such a nice guy. He's trying to entertain us. And we're like, no, you focus on what you got to do. And we'll just sit back and enjoy. And that's the way it is with all the athletes that we've coached. I think we've always told them, even as freshman football, like, we just want to sit your senior year. We want to sit in the stands and watch you do your thing, or whatever you do in life. I just want to sit back and watch the success that these kids have later on in life, and been blessed with a lot of them, a lot of different kids that have been successful in different aspects. There's the kids that make it in the mainstream like Joseph. And then there's kids that no one's ever heard of that I walk into an emergency room and, oh, Dr. Lotta, hello, you just see people all over town that you're like, they're being successful in life, and that's great. So
that's gotta feel good because you're at that point you stop being a coach. Like you said, when you were watching Joe and you wanted to just enjoy it, you're no longer the coach. You want to enjoy being a fan of these guys and rooting them on, even if it's because of a personal connection there. That makes you root them on even harder. And I mean, I would have to agree that it doesn't even change when they're doing something else in life because you're seeing them succeed. And like you said earlier about teaching them lessons, a lot of these lessons that we learn playing sports. A lot of people don't understand. You take those lessons into life, even if you're not an athlete in your life. You take the lessons of discipline, of the way you treat people. I've always told people a big one that sports teaches is teamwork, the ability to work with each other, work with other people, patience, things like that. So I would imagine, like you just said, it feels really good when you see people doing well for themselves, people that you have coached and just kind of stick with your memory for quite a while.
Yeah, that's awesome. And with coaching all the different sports that I've coached, my heart usually is always with wrestling because it is a lot different because we talk about teamwork, but everyone looks at wrestling as such an individual sport, but they don't see the practice room. And with wrestling, we've always preached that whoever walks into that room, it's equal respect for everybody. I don't care if you're a 3-time state champ or walking in the room for the first time. Everyone's going through the same workout. We're all going to be doing the same thing. And during the season, you see that evolve, and you see the kids that normally wouldn't talk to each other, they have a special connection. And all the sports that kids do in high school, they usually come back and say, you know what, what's weird though is the connection we made in the wrestling room is just at another level. And I mean, football players have that special connection, baseball players,
Yeah.
basketball, you all do, but it's something in that wrestling room. And the last 4 or 5 years have been really interesting because the state of New Mexico has sanctioned women's wrestling. So we have the girls and the guys in there, and we chose to practice them at the exact same time and have them go through the same workouts for the most part. And it was interesting, but you see that connection too. And so it is a good teamwork sport as well.
Now tell me about some of the maybe are there any other athletes that maybe that you have coached that now have done the turnaround on you, and actually that you can sit here and say this student or this athlete taught me something that I didn't know before?
You know what's weird is that, I mean, well, it's not weird, it's just reality, I guess, that over 30 years talking to you right now about the athletes, as soon as we're done, I'm going to kick myself because there's someone that I'm going to wish I talked about before, more or things like that. But there's so many. I had the hard thing with the coach is you see successes, but you also see tragedies. You see different things. Like just a couple months ago, I was at a funeral of a former wrestler, Eric Romero, who state champ for us, went on to be I think the best official in the state for wrestling. And he was an advocate for youth wrestling up in the Albuquerque area, and fluke thing where he had a at work injury and resulted in death. And, and so that's heartbreaking. Another one that right now my heart aches for is we had a Carlos Valles, who is a great wrestler for us. This kid came in, and his freshman year, he's like 220 pounds, maybe like 4'8". And he was a fullback for us in football and wrestled for us. And he was always little freshman wrestling all these big guys. And he said, I don't like this. By his senior year, he had lost that baby fat and put on the muscle. He was a 160-pound wrestler for us, did a great job, one of the hardest workers we ever had. And he went on to join the Border Patrol, and then later on went and joined the ATF. And from what I understand, he was one of the best undercover agents that the ATF had.
Wow.
And in fact, one time I was at a little youth baseball tournament with my son, and we get on an elevator, and I see Carlos there on the elevator. But he just had a look in his eye like, don't say a word. And I didn't. I just looked at him, hey, what's up? And later on he called, he's like, Coach, thanks. I was on an undercover operation. I didn't know I'd like run into someone. And but just recently, I guess he took down a big drug fentanyl deal in New Orleans, but it went south, and someone tried to rob it while he was alone in the room with 8 people. Someone else came to rob it, and everything went crazy. And he went out a 3rd-story window to not get shot and killed, but he broke his back. So right now he's paralyzed and going through physical therapy and recovering. I just talked to a good friend of his a little while ago, and I guess the ATF's trying to get him like a house built back in where his hometown is, and he's going through all that physical therapy. So you see things like that, it's like, oh man, they're just the great kids. And then just his family's great, the Valles family from the South Valley here. They're everyone knows Valleses, and they're just a great group of people. And this kid was awesome. So you hear like that, and then there's also the kids that no one hears about, that it's just I like kids that work hard. They just kids that try. And there's so many kids that have been through our program that never placed at state. No one knows that they were a wrestler. And even my state champs, I tell them, when they win, I tell them, all the athletes, don't make this the best thing that happened in your life. I don't care if you were a 3-time state champ, 4-time state champ, placed 6th, got the pin that won the tournament for us. don't make this the best thing that happens in your life. You go out and do greater things, and that's the best reward we can have. So,
that is awesome. I love
and
that
Carlos was
line.
one of those for sure. So
Yeah,
I do have another guy that's a story going back to what you said about being late and being
okay.
good students. Um, Coach Bravo and I were coaching freshman football one year, and one of my mentor teachers, English teachers, a lady by the name of Mrs. Kearney, nicest lady in the world. She came to me. We taught across the hall from each other. She's like, I have this student, and I think he's a freshman. I think he's a football player or a wrestler, and he's acting up in class. So we said, okay, tell me his name, and we'll deal with it at practice. So this kid comes back to practice, and I've talked to him about this. He doesn't mind me sharing the story. So this kid, Abel Garcia, comes to practice like, Abel, how's Miss Kearney's class? It's good, coach. You like to be a clown in that class? Oh, it's all right. She doesn't mind. Bubba was like, tell you what, you take your helmet and you go run the ditch. So we have that irrigation ditch around Cruces High, and we sent him running. And he ran. We had practice. Coach Bravo and I, sit. Everyone gets out of the locker room. We're leaving. And I pull out of the practice area, and I look down the ditch. I'm like, what is that? I was like, oh, we forgot about Abel. He's still running. So this kid, we had to turn around, open the locker room, and let Abel get dressed. And it was like, Coach, man, I didn't know if you were ever going to have me stop. I was like, tell you the truth, Abel, we forgot about you. So, but to Abel's credit, he didn't quit running. And I told him that's a good sign. That's a good sign that you didn't just quit. And now Abel, he had his trials through life, but he's now a famous, world famous artist out of Dallas, Texas. Now he just moved to Florida, to Naples, and he comes back. I teach at the juvenile detention center now, at Aztec Youth Academy.
Yeah.
And Abel makes it a point to come out and speak to the kids, because he's one of those kids that could have ended up there, and he shares his personal story with the kids, and a lot of times that means a lot more for the kids than anything we can do. So he did a good job of just making it through life himself, and giving back. He does a great job of giving back to charities, and I think that a big art gala for him and stuff like that. So
wow.
It's neat to have the kids like that. But then you have the kids that never placed, and so they do a great job too. And I just enjoy the kids that work hard and give it their all.
Yeah, there you go. Because I mean, to be honest, when you just speaking from somebody who I actually, I used to help teach kids kickboxing up in Santa Fe. So I really agree with that, because I believe that when they work hard, and the whole thing you just said about Abel not quitting on the running, it just shows you something because that immediately tells you they are coachable, they are willing to learn. And you can coach them and you can help them, and I think that is that is a great story. That is such a great story, man. I'm just sitting there still laughing about that, because I can picture it.
Just take that helmet and run. He's
Now, what is it like? What is it that you actually are doing out there at the center? What are you teaching out there?
I teach English, and what we have out at the Aztec Youth Academy is an accredited high school, but we are just on the, I hate to call it a prison, but it's a detention center, and these are kids that are locked up for different crimes for either a year, 2 years, or until they turn 20. So we have a lot of kids that come in and they don't have any credits. They may have never gone to high school. We have other kids that just made a bad choice in their life, and they're there out of surprise, and they have credits. So we give them the opportunity to earn their high school credits and also go on and get online credits through Central New Mexico. So it was a surprise for me to go up there. I was Cruces High for 25 years when I got a call or an email from the principal up there asking if I would check the place out. And when I went up there, I was like, you know what? It's time. It's time to move up there. And and work with a different audience and try to make an impact there. And the kids up there, they appreciate it. I think a lot of them realize that the mistakes they made in life have a lot to do with the lack of education or the lack of going to school. It's a lot of what led to where they were. So we hopefully can have a good success rate and turn a lot of those kids around. So
that is awesome. I mean, I think I can speak for everybody when we say what you're doing now is, I mean, anytime you're working with the youth and you're being a teacher of young people that are going to be they are the future of these communities, it's noble work. It's noble work, and now what you're doing is just as noble, but it's just different. So that's much respect for doing that, man. That is amazing. That is
well,
amazing.
thank you. I mean, I enjoy it, and it's a different atmosphere, different take on things. But the kids, they're the future, and if we can,
that's right,
turn a few of them around, we need that right now.
Now, speaking of kids, are you are a father? You're a father.
Yes.
You have a family and stuff,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Any athletes?
Tell by the lack of hair, I think that might have been
They'll
more
do
for
that.
my kids than the coaching. And that's I have a daughter and a son, both moved on to their lives, and I get stories from them too. My daughter through high school would tell me, "Dad, you know how hard it is being the daughter of Coach Marks? No one talked to me," and stuff like that. And it's like I don't think I did anything. It's just like they're scared to talk to me.
And it's kind of like if she was it's kind of like being the kid, I guess, of like if you're in a small town of like the sheriff, but when you're in school, you're the coach that was like, oh no, don't get her mad because
exactly. But she did, both my kids did a good job. I'm kidding. They made life a lot easier. I'm sure my daughter was she got involved in the sports too. She was in sports medicine and went through the sports medicine program and knew right away when the first time she was holding a dislocated elbow on a wrestling mat and she had a smile on her face, like I knew what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. So she went in to physical therapy and is a doctor of physical therapy. My son, he went through and played freshman football, and then he played baseball as well. So they did the sports, but he's also just received his master's, and so I got a doctor and someone that just got a master's. That's not bad for the kids, and they're enjoying their life. I just became a grandpa for the second time last week.
Nice.
So my daughter's doing that, and
I actually just became a grandpa over the last couple months for the first time, and now I know why they say it's just different.
Yeah.
You don't understand it. You hear it from people, just the bond, the love you have for a grandchild, but you don't understand it until you actually are in it, man. So that's awesome. Congratulations. And for your kids to be doing what they're doing.
Well,
That says a lot about their upbringing. So congratulations.
I think they did have a little of the hair loss thing too, because the one thing with having a title of coach in front of your name, when my kids were little and they tried sports, either I have a bad habit of saying no, I just need to learn to say no. But for my son, a lot of times, just the way things happened, ended up coaching youth sports a lot too. I coached youth baseball, youth football, did that on the side. And then my daughter tried to help with the soccer team one time. I was like, oh no, I can't go. And went into gymnastics later. So I just passed the torch there. But yeah, so there was a lot of, it was neat because I got to make relationships with a lot of kids their age though, like even closer.
Yeah.
And then with wrestling, it was unique because, a lot of coaches, you coach because you have kids and you want to, somewhere in the back of your mind, you want to coach your kids someday. But Coach Bravo and I both talk about, like, we did over 30 years of wrestling and none of our kids coach or wrestled. So we were there for other people's kids 100% of the time. And that was nice. So
that's still such an amazing thing to be doing it for so long. We talked earlier about, when you came to Las Cruces and you said, now this is where I'm just going to stay. Talk to me a little bit about from then even to now, your love for Las Cruces, everything here. What is it that has kept you here, or that kept you here all those years? And what is it about this place that that you just love about it that has never changed?
You know, now that you say it's a little scary because to say never changed, I don't know. Because I mean, Las Cruces
Okay,
is
yeah,
changing, you know,
yeah,
but it was the love for Las Cruces was the community. You know, when I first started coaching, the Oñate had just came into the picture, you know, so
okay,
there was
yeah,
Cruces Mayfield rivalry with the sports aspect, uh, the way the community would rally around the events and stuff like that. What I do miss is I miss opening up the newspaper and reading about the local kids. You know,
yes,
I wish that this community would do a better job of focusing on the good accomplishments of our youth rather than opening up the paper and seeing what someone did that was bad. You know, I think if you have the time to write the negative stories, you should be able to have the time to write positive stories too. And I
that's
wish we
right.
had that back, but you know, you go back to the years of all the
Yeah,
rivalries and just the support they have. You'd see the football team supporting the volleyball team supporting the basketball. You know, everyone went and and supported each other, and that was a really nice thing in the community. And we're, you know, it's
yeah,
just the fact that we're getting, you know, getting bigger. It's we kind of lose
yeah.
with the
I
number of
agree.
hospitals now. It's like we can't bottle it all in like we used to be able to.
Yeah,
But
I always tell people. A matter of fact, the other day I was with family and they made a joke because I talked about how the city just keeps growing and it's growing out on the East Mesa. Because I live out here in Fair Acres in the farmland where I love it out here because there's nobody's out here, you know. So,
yeah,
but I see everything out there and then the crime, all this stuff, and it's just like I agree, and that's one of the reasons why I actually started this show because I'm like, the sense of community was the thing that always made me so proud to be born and raised in Las Cruces. And the times when I left, whether it was going to Job Corps, when I moved up north to Santa Fe, I always come back, and it was always about the community. And I love that you say that, about it growing because it's not just the growing that I think, has been an issue with why a lot of the good things about some of these students and some of these newsworthy things going on are not talked about. And a lot of that, I think, is the changes in terms of technology, like social media. I've always told people it's got its good and its bad, but I feel like I'm blessed to have been able to be raised in an era without social media. Because
yeah,
when I look back on it, I'm like, man, and I see my daughter and the kids with the phones, and they've got the tablets and everything, and that's all good and well, but they miss out on a lot of what we had in terms of the interaction and just spending the day or the summer with friends, out going to a friend's house, riding bikes and doing stuff like that. And I really feel like the growth of the city has kind of affected, like you said, it's affected the sense of community a little bit. It's still here, but I think I feel like what you do, even more so, especially now what you do over at Aztec, and what some of us are trying to do. Like me, I'm trying to use the technology. We're trying to build this community back up in Las Cruces. I feel like it's never went away. It's just kind of been, like you said, it's kind of separated a little bit.
yeah. We and
What do you
I
think?
see off what you're saying. I do see that too. The technology we've lost that personal contact, and you know, being a teacher in the classroom too.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
we push for the technology in the classroom and stuff like that. But if you, I listen to the kids out at our facility, and they're like, you give them a computer and they're depressed. Like they crave that human to human contact and relationships. And I think we're starting to lose that, and we need to find that balance. You know, there's skills they need, but they still need that to know that there's a human being there. And I think that's
absolutely.
part of it. We lost that part of humanity a little bit that's there.
Yeah. It's kind of like me, I come from a music family, and when we go to concerts, I still like to take my video, I'll take some pictures, and then I'll put my phone away. And I kind of like I get a little depressed because I'll look around and I'll see people enjoying the
Yeah.
entire show, looking up at their phone, and I'm like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
record a little bit and enjoy living the moment a little bit. That's just, an example that comes to my mind of what you're talking about, of how we've lost that kind of sense of person to person type of thing, man. But it's still there, and I think people like you are still, you've taught the people you've taught are taking that with them too, and it's almost like I look at it as a pay it forward type of thing. This is what I was taught,
Yeah.
and now I'm going to teach you because I'm in a position. So I think I mean, are you aware of perhaps that kind of impact that you have had over your 30 years, and some of these kids that are going on and what they learned from you and now they're teaching that?
You know, I think so, and I'm blessed to see it, and I think maybe that's a little ego boost and why I stay here, because it is neat
Yeah,
to go
it is.
out and like with the teaching aspect years ago, one of our principals just said, hey, we need to do something better for the kids, and I also have a degree in hotel restaurant management, and he let me
Okay.
start a hospitality program, and I did an
Nice.
internship and started that up, and so now I can go to restaurants. So there's a few restaurants in Mesilla that are former students. Like, I took your class in high school, and this is what got me interested in restaurants. So we got Salud and Chalas and all these places I can walk in, and and I would give the businesses around town free work. Give them interns that would go in and see what it was really like, and stuff like that. So it's in sports, but it's also in school, and I just think for coaching, the coaches get to see the impact a little bit more than teachers do.
Yeah.
The teachers, I think that's why a lot of teachers get burnt out or frustrated, is they don't see the impact they make as much. I guess it's not
Yeah.
celebrated as much, I don't think,
Yeah.
and it should be. If
Yeah, I
there's a way
agree.
to do that. We got, I know the HOSA program at Las Cruces High, like 3 state champs 3 times in a row, 3 years in a row,
Wow.
and they're producing some quality kids that are going to go out in the medical field, but how do you see
Yeah.
that? It's stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's something you don't see until long term, and
Yeah.
a lot of people may not realize what educator or coach may have had a big hand in, that student that would become that later on in life. So you're absolutely right. It goes unnoticed, and it's tragic that it does. Unfortunately, that's just the way of the world. And I think that's why doing what you do, what you have done for so long, and being an educator and a coach, you don't do it because of the recognition. You have
Yeah.
to do it because of the lives that you're connecting to.
Yeah, it's those relationships, and I think that's the thing with Las Cruces. When it was a little smaller, you had more opportunity for those relationships, and
Yeah.
it goes in everywhere. That's it started my when I first started at Cruces. We talk about success and things like that. I have to give a shout out to Coach Potter. I don't know how many people even know who Coach Potter was, but he came
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
to Cruces High when Cruces football wasn't that great, and he came in, and I remember his first week he called me into his office, and he said, hey, I want to go have a beer at Orion's with you after school. And he said, you're the wrestling coach? And I said, yes, sir. And he's like, I'm the new football coach, and no one works harder than wrestlers, and we need to work together. And
Okay.
we started working together, and he built a great foundation. And then I was blessed to do freshman football under Coach Miller, who also he
Yeah.
was laser focused, and that guy went 6-0 in state championship football games, and but we all
Amazing.
worked together, and I think that's something that the schools need to remember now, especially now that we have more schools. You can't be fighting for your athletes. You got to be sharing your athletes, and build relationships, and learn how to work together, and know that each program deserves equal respect, because it can't be
Mhm.
like, oh, we'll let you do this, but it's all for us. It's we need
Yeah,
to
exactly.
let these kids experience life, and know, and if they see the coaches working together, then I just think that gets that builds
Especially
for all these relationships.
yes, especially because they're, as a guy who was an athlete here, you being a coach here, there's a certain pride thing now with our southern New Mexico, with us, and with northern New Mexico,
Yeah.
and Albuquerque, and it's like I know, being that I was a Mayfield Trojan, but anytime Cruz is high, it doesn't matter what sport it is. It don't matter if it's boys, girls, whatever. Anytime they're taking on somebody from the north, I'm all there. I'm rooting them on,
Yeah.
because it's that pride thing that we have here. Um, that was. It seems like now I hate to be the downer, but that was always the one thing that that still has eluded this area. Any of the high schools in terms of wrestling is a team state championship. What I do see that there was I believe there was a lot of belief in, I think it was the 2018 team that you guys had. There was a lot of belief that they were going to make a strong push for it. Um, what do you think it is, man? What is it that one of these schools that it's going to take to just finally get over that hump and bring a team state wrestling championship to Las Cruces?
It's tough. Like, I don't think people realize, one thing is Las Cruces Public Schools right now, we're the only district that doesn't have a class for wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I recently they kind of say, well, it's up to each school now, but the reality of it is no one's really pushing for it. Like, Gadsden has a class with 70 wrestlers in it right now, and they're gonna start making an up click, and especially with the sport where kids don't know it, and with the girls wrestling, I hope that kind of turns the corner. That 2018 team that we had, winning a state championship isn't easy, and it takes all that time and commitment, and then you need a little bit of luck. And for us, we lost a kid that had taken second at state his sophomore year, was favored to be a state champ his senior year, decided he wasn't going to wrestle. Family problems, things like that. And we tried what we could with that. So, right there, you lose 25, 30 points from your team total. So, that might have been part of it. Then you get another kid from another school that comes out of nowhere and knocks off someone. And wrestling, it's just so unpredictable. But you get, you have the Rio Ranchos, the Cleveland, those schools are 3 or 4 times the size of any school here. So they have a lot more to work with. They have over 100 kids in their room.
Yeah.
A
lot bigger talent pool.
We've been blessed. We usually run about 50 to 75 people in the room. Now with the girls wrestling, we're up around 75. And we had a girls team a couple of years ago that could have made a run to be one of the first girls state championship teams. And our returning state champ blows out her knee a week before the state tournament. Heaven Robles, right? She's wrestling in college right now, but we didn't have her senior year to wrestle. And those points, could have put us over the top. And it's one of those things where you want it. And the nice thing about wrestling is it is individual, but the bad thing is it's individual. And you leave the state tournament always happy for someone and always devastated for someone. You don't just leave happy or sad. It's both. You have that torn emotions because you have the kid. I had a kid, Chris Aguirre, that was probably one of the hardest workers we ever had, has a bad call and doesn't place at state. It's like, And then you have an Alex Ramsey that worked hard, never placed at state, and his senior year is a state champ. And you're like, man, this is, that's what it's about. But then you have the kids you're devastated for too. So it's so much.
It's like a circus. It seems like it's like a roller coaster, just every single meet.
It is, and it's exhausting when you get to the end of the year because you're there, and that it's nonstop. Like with wrestling, it's not. No offense to the other sports where it's, guys, we're going to sleep in, we're going to go to the mall, we're going to do this. No, wrestling, it's, hey, we're staying too far away from the venue, so we got to get up at 4:30. We got to weigh in at 7. We got to go find you breakfast, and then we got to sit in the auditorium till 10:30 at night and take turns wrestling. We're not here on a vacation. We're here.
Yeah,
and it's brutal on the parents too, to be honest. Like parents and wrestlers, they've got to have a little shout out too, because sitting there all day waiting for your kid to wrestle, that's one thing I wish we could change in the sport and let them.
Yeah, and much respect, like you say, yes, to all the parents over the years of athletes of wrestling. Any kind of athlete. It's not an easy job being a parent, as it is, but it's a whole different type of job when you have a child that's an athlete because especially when they're very committed to what they're doing. And I'm sure as a coach, that's another challenge too. That's a whole other
Oh,
conversation, I'm
oh
sure,
yeah,
of
the
the
parent one.
challenging parents.
Yeah, it is. We've had interesting, over the 31 years, I've been blessed where I think I've only had like one or two parent issues, and I've had principals actually tell me that, like, Coach Marks, we like you because we don't have a parent in here every week where in your sport, where other sports they're here all the time. But we've had an issue here or there, but in the long run, in our wrestling room, everything we did was in the best interest of the kids. It wasn't for the parents. I still remember Coach Bravo. We talking about the freshman football. We were pretty successful. Usually we never went undefeated till a couple of years, like one of the last years that I coached freshman football. But we'd always lose like one game, and it'd either be early in the season or the last game of the season. So I'll go over a couple of those. Like, I remember we had a really good team, and Dante Cotto was our quarterback.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's the first game of the season. We're playing Franklin High School, and we tell the kids 8:00 in the film room. 8:00 Saturday morning. 8:02, Dante comes in, and Coach Bravo's like, "Congratulations, Dante! You'll be watching the game today." And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" It's like, "You're 2 minutes late. We said be in your seat at 8:00." It's like, and we lose like 28-21 that game, and Coach Bravo's good friends with Dante's dad, and he went out to, "Hey, you brought your son late. He's not playing today." And the dad's like, "Oh, we were, it's just losing this and that." It's like, and we feel bad because especially with freshmen, they're at the mercy of their parents and stuff like that. But and then
I think that's one of the challenging things of being a parent.
We had a freshman game against Mayfield. It was, usually the last game of the season. We're playing Mayfield freshman football, and you play on the practice field. So one of the little things that Mayfield and Cruces did to each other is you always put the other team by the fans, where the bleachers were. So we're playing Mayfield. We're both undefeated. Good close game, like a 4-point game, and down to the fourth quarter. And we're on the Mayfield practice side with the bleachers, and they had fans standing on the track behind us. This is Cruces. Everyone supports everything. These games are packed. And Mayfield's about to put a nail in the coffin. They're up by like 4 points and about to score again. And they throw an interception, and we have a kid run it all the way back for a touchdown.
Nice.
And this is like a minute left in the game.
Nice.
Screaming, yes, this is great. And this flag goes up in the air. Oh. And we look, and the referee comes over, and we're like, "What's the penalty?" He's like, "Unsportsmanlike," or I can't remember what he said, but he goes, "On that coach right there," and he points to me. I was like, "What?" And he's like, "You were cussing at me while we were during the play." I was like, "Why would I be cussing at you during the play? We're running for a touchdown." And it turns out there was a Mayfield fan standing like right behind us yelling like obscenities, but they directed it at us. And, it was like, oh, those rivalry games. And I
so now I got to know, did they uphold the penalty then?
Oh, well, that was the good argument, because I was like, okay, that's fine. The penalty's on the extra point because it was a dead ball.
That's right.
The referee said, "No, you cussed at us about the 40-yard line. We're going to give you the ball at the 40. Like, you can't do that, So the frustrations of life, and after the game, a few weeks later, an official off the record's like, "Oh yeah, we kind of messed that up." And it's like, yeah, Mayfield went on to win because we didn't get that touchdown. And it's like, but
that's the frustrations, man.
Cruces. That was the fun of it, though, is like just those rivalries and how the whole community would get behind everything. And,
the emotion and the passion is always there. That's the one thing, is that it's always been, Cruces and Mayfield, it was always still that rivalry. It don't matter what sport it is. It is a rivalry, no matter what grade, freshman, junior, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be that rivalry. So I can just imagine how big it was for you guys in those games.
And wrestling was no different. It was always a rivalry, and it even built more because when Coach Nevadas went to Coach Mayfield, he was a Cruces wrestler when he was in high school. So it's like, oh, so you go over to Mayfield, and then we had some good rivalries in wrestling. It was just exciting, and duels in wrestling are different. It's like a chess match because you can bump a kid up a weight class or hold him back, or it's a lot of strategizing and that we would do, and those were always fun duels. And then just a couple of years ago, we pulled the shocker of the century, and Coach Nevadas III, Coach Jimmy Nevadas III, who wrestled at Mayfield and was a 3-time state champ, came over and became my assistant. So, that's who I program over to when I retired. So everyone's like, how did that happen? He's like, his dad was a Bulldog, and, and we talked about the rivalries, and I tell my kids, we have a rivalry. It's Mayfield. Mm-hmm. We're not going to have a rivalry with Oñate or Oregon Mountain or Centennial. And with wrestling, we never lost to Centennial. I've never been beaten by Centennial ever. I've never been beaten by Oregon Mountain. It's like, they're not a rivalry.
You're like, they don't matter to me in my career. Okay.
And Centennial's they've been getting closer. They've been getting closer these past few years, but that's it. We tried to do, keep that going. But those are things we don't even talk about. Like, we talked about accolades earlier, and I don't even notice, like, we at Cruces High, there's a wall with, oh, this coach has 100 wins. This coach has 200 wins, and blah, blah, blah. And Coach Bravo was in our wrestling office one day. He goes, how many wins do you have? And I said, you mean, how many wins do we have? And so I actually got a national coaches award a couple of years ago, and they made me count my wins.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't even mention that, man. I mean, you're talking about everything. Yes. Talk about that.
And it was shocking. So I was like, Coach, you know what? At the time I had over 500 wins, and we ended, I think we ended up with like 600 wins over our careers. Like, wow, man, maybe we should do something like that. But
wow,
but it's wrestling just different. It's just, we never would have thought of counting our wins, with wrestling, how many dual wins you've had and how many teams you beat at the state tournament, stuff like that. And,
when you're going through it, you're not thinking about, oh, let me add another win and this meet to my record. You're just thinking about, I want my guy to win this matchup. So what can I do? Put him in that position. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you mentioned National High School Coach of the Year. Now, Las Cruces Public Schools, you were a finalist for Teacher of the Year. That itself to me is very impressive. Very impressive. Were you disappointed you didn't get that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm always disappointed. Yeah. I'm competitive as can be, but
there you go.
Again, I like the underdogs when I'm coaching. I like to grab that kid that no one believes in and make something out of them. And it was the same there. I looked at it, and I was a coach and a teacher. And you see the other finalists like, well, I went to this conference and I went to this conference, went to this conference. Like, well, I didn't have time to go to a conference. I was teaching, this is kind of what I wanted to say. It's like, yeah. But not to take anything away from the other people and the winners, but of course I always wanted to win, and I did. I was nominated a couple times, and I didn't do the whole process, and my mentor teacher came to me. I mentioned her earlier, Mrs. Kearney, and she's like, you know what, you need to actually go through this process, because coaches need to be recognized. They need to know that
yes.
You're doing stuff in the classroom too. And I always took pride in the classroom, and I love the classroom. It's just the teaching aspect of it. I've always liked helping people, and getting through a problem and things like that. And the kids would freak out, because the kids that would see me on the football field or at the wrestling mat, I probably yelled a little bit more than the football field. But and then I'm in the classroom reading poetry. They're like, wait, you're reading poetry to us, or we're talking about Macbeth here, and you're the guy
that's awesome.
Was yelling at the, it's like, well, I have to yell. They wear headgear, so
that's great. Oh, that is great, man. The story's awesome. Um, so before I let you go, man, time flies. Time flies when you're having good
Oh yeah.
conversation. So before I let you go, I got a couple of quick questions I want you to give me off the top of your head. Now, we talked about being here in Las Cruces and the things we love. Quick question:
Uh-oh.
what is your favorite Mexican food restaurant?
Oh man, that one's tough because I have so many connections. Yeah. I
You don't
have
want to get the wrong answer.
I have favorite dishes.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
all right, all
But
right.
right now, like we're already talking about, will we have time to run down to Chopes after this? So I'm probably going to Chopes today. We were camping up in the Gila. As soon as we pulled into town, we stopped at Andales. You know, I can't I can't say enough about chalas and all that homemade food there either.
Yeah,
I have to
yeah,
shout out to all of them. And I
yeah.
during college I worked at Double Eagle and
Okay.
helped actually with the design and the opening of Peppers. That was one of my things I did while I was in
Ah,
college. So
all right.
anything here, I'm like you. I don't even know what the East Mesa looks like. I stay in the South Valley,
Yeah,
and it's Mesilla and the South Valley for me all the way. Chilitos, Dick's,
that's
and
it.
Lettuce, and
Yes, yes. I
that's as
I
far as we're
completely
going.
agree, man. Andales is my spot, but same thing. Chilitos, La Posta, it don't matter. Long as it's in the heart of Las Cruces or in Mesilla, I'm there. You know what I mean? So now I always tell people, being that I've lived in other cities, isn't that I always tell them though, Las Cruces to me has, and I'm probably biased, but it has the best selection of Mexican food anywhere
Oh
that you're
yeah,
gonna find. I always
De-
tell people it's very rare that you're gonna go to a restaurant and not like the food here if it's a local place. So I,
exactly.
I gotta
I
say
have
that.
I'm a creature of habit, so I have my specific
Yeah,
dish at each restaurant. I get my
I
number three
agree.
with the Rieno at Chopes. The I
Oh
can't
man,
nothing beats the enchiladas, the red sauce at Chalas, and my pork taco plate at Andales as I go up,
there you
and then
go.
there's the other places that aren't the Mexican food that are just as good too. So
Yeah, yeah.
I hit all of them
All
too.
right. You're a music lover? I'm assuming everybody's kind of likes their music, or maybe you just now. So tell me this now. Put yourself in the situation where you're either as an athlete or as a coach, or even now you're getting ready for something big. You got something coming up. What are you listening to?
I'm listening to the hard rock.
Okay,
Mainly
okay,
the 70s, 80s, 90s rock
yeah,
is it. That's what I'm all about. The Aerosmith, the AC/DC, all of that
yes,
type of stuff.
yeah. Aerosmith is actually my favorite rock band ever. They've
Oh
been
yeah,
my
that I
favorites
think
now.
that's the band I've probably seen the most in concert. I think
Wow.
is
See, and
probably
that's probably the one band that I'm not going to be able to mark off my bucket list. Would be
uh-oh.
them. One of them. We're going to see Earth, Wind, and Fire here in a couple of weeks, but it's just like the Aerosmith thing is the one that I'm like, "Ugh, I have a feeling that's the one I'm not gonna get to see. I mean, you've seen them, so how many times have you seen them?
Oh, I've seen them since this. They were probably since the 80s. Like anytime I'm at
Okay,
their
yeah,
concert. Yeah.
yeah,
So
awesome.
I don't even know how many times I've seen them. It's like, and sometimes it'd be like, okay, we'll watch them in Albuquerque, and then we'll go watch them in El Paso the next night. It'd be
There you
like,
go. There you go. All right. So hey, now thank you so much for being here. This has been an absolute pleasure, and it's been a blast to be honest. I feel like I could continue this show for a few more hours, and you can just give me stories on this.
oh yeah,
But it is
that we
it is
do for sure.
it
I
is
do want to
Sunday. Go ahead.
I want to
Go ahead.
throw one thing out real quick that I didn't really focus on much, but I did allude to. We do have like the girls wrestling now,
Hmm.
and I think that girls wrestling is saving the sport right now with the growth. It's the fastest growing high school sport in the nation, and I encourage anyone that has a daughter to take a chance and look at it because it's something I wish they had when my daughter was around. I think it would have helped just in life in general. It's
Yeah.
just a great thing, a great opportunity for the girls. And we have some really good girl wrestlers too that are going through the program right now. And we always had a girl that wrestled. I had a girl that was a 2-time state champ at Hawaii way back because we didn't have it in New Mexico, so they moved her. And it's just
Okay.
it's a great thing, a great opportunity for the girls too.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And I love that you say that because I mean, women in sports and girls in sports is just becoming more and more popular. And I think the internet, obviously, that's been one of the good things that's helped. And you look at what's going on now with the WNBA, with Caitlin Clark and Angel
Oh, yeah.
Reese, and the excitement that they've brought to that. And now you look at that, and now you're looking at, like you said, girls in other sports, and the fact that it's being implemented now, at the public school level. Yeah, it's a great thing, and I think it's something that this community can really get behind, especially because for in order for these athletes to really feel accomplished, a lot of it doesn't even have to be the winning. I mean, I think a lot of it just has to do with the support. They get the community support. That in itself is a boost
Oh, yeah.
to these athletes. So definitely agree with that. Now, before I let you go, any last thoughts? Anything you would like to say to everybody out there in the community, be it athletes, be it parents, be it just Las Cruces in general?
I'd like to say that, everyone be aware of how important these formative years for the kids are in high school, and get them involved in something. Everyone needs to be involved in something at school. There's so many activities there for them that there's something that will spark their interest, and just support the kids in whatever they do. And for coaches or people thinking about coming into education, you need to be passionate about it. I really think that's what's going to make you successful is the passion that you have for what you do. There's so many people that will try to give you advice or do this and that, but be yourself, be genuine, because these kids, they pick up on that real quick. If you're trying to force it, they know. Just enjoy what you do, and do what's the best interest of the kids, and that'll help you along the way.
There you go. Words from the man himself. Coach Marks, thank you very much for being with me today on Off the Grid, man. Really appreciate it. Just hearing everything from you, getting to know you. So I have such a respect for you, just like everybody else in the community. So thank you, not just for being here, but thank you for everything that you've done throughout your 30 plus years here in the community, everything that you continue to do now for our youth, helping to mold the future, because that's what you're doing. For the last 30 plus years, you have molded the future of our community and maybe beyond, and you continue to do so. So I'm sure it's safe to say, on behalf of everybody within this community, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the show, Gabriel, and it was a pleasure. And I'm hoping I can keep doing this and keep teaching as much as I can, because I'm still enjoying every minute of it.
There you go. All right. So before we head out, everybody, all my viewers, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. If you have somebody that you would love to see on the show, somebody you think is making some moves here in the community, making marks, you can email me at offthegrid.lc@outlook.com and tell me all about it. All right. And also, you can find Off the Grid available on Spotify, iHeart, and Pocket Casts, as well as YouTube. Be sure to follow the channel and share it. Get our community going, man. Get people knowing about what's going on, and let's show love to everybody that deserves it. All right. So before I head out, I always like to close every show with a positive message. And in this case, it goes based on our conversation. And I think it's good to tell people it's never too late to build on your legacy. We talked about you being an educator and then coming in and coaching for so long afterwards, because I feel your greatness in your life can be defined by many things, especially when it involves your community, when it involves molding the future. It does not matter how old you are. It doesn't matter. You see people with multiple careers. They go on to do something else and be just as impactful at it, much like you have. So it's okay to go off the grid, do something different, but it's never okay to get off your grind, because to me, that's where you shine. And that's where you shine the brightest. This is Off the Grid. I am Gabriel Garcia. This is Coach Kevin Marks. Coach, thank you for being here so much. Really appreciate you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Maybe you'll make it out to Chopes.
Yeah, I'm on the way.
All right, everybody. This is Off the Grid. I'm going to catch you next time. Be sure to keep following me on my social medias, and I'll keep you posted on my next guest. All right. Off the Grid, Gabriel Garcia, Coach Kevin Marks. Thank you, everybody. Much love.
Thank you.
If you're down, leave your drama behind and let's roll. The world is getting lost in my feel-good flow. Oh! 575